So I'm Brian Hughes, and I'll be treating you to enterprise architecture for what-if analysis and business change. And I began life as a, well, golf was my life. I played golf international amateur level until I broke myself. So I then joined the caravan of love that is the IT world. And 35 years later, I'm talking to you. I joined Oracle after doing an MSc and went from coder to chief architect, going through quite a number of sort of technical skills and building systems from bare metal, being a DBA, to business analysis, data modeling, and developing. I became chief architect for Oracle apps in the UK. So at that point in time, I thought I knew everything. And I then joined a company who had taken the role of turning around disaster projects. And this was, well, it's quite a traumatic period, but it was quite good for me in that I quickly realized that being able to improve or get to an end state or a successful end state, that I needed to throw out my ego, started being more empathetic and talking to people, because these were quite traumatic times. And all the way through those projects, there weren't any tools around at the time that allowed you to draw up or understand what were the potential options, what were the pluses and minuses from the whole of the, from the business side to the technical side. So I started, as you do, build my own toolkit to create a sort of an objective way of moving things along and trying to smooth the waters. Then sometimes that kind of dropped into what I called as an internecine playground, in that there was the end result of that would be no benefit for anybody. But as the company that I was working for had taken on quite a lot of financial risk, there was no possibility of a failure there. It would have been the end of careers and companies. So that was quite a formative time for me. But it was always about that. Is there a what if capability? What can I use? And generally it wasn't anything. And then later on, I moved more into standard sort of solution architecture and design authority and EA work. And EA tools became a thing. And I tried it with a couple of EA tools, one from a Zachman type thing, and another one from a system architecture. But they were okay until they were very expensive to produce, but also customized, heavily invasive, and generally failed at the first upgrade. So roll on, I've been using Abacus for 10 years in a number of sort of standard guises, but I've also pushed the boundaries of Abacus to do what it perhaps wasn't designed to do, or it's not designed to do for a particular EA. So sometimes I've cut the top end off of Abacus about the motivational model and had it just controlling code and understanding, moving from environments. So very much the low end of that, but also in some projects of actually pushing it to become a full requirement traceability. So you can actually navigate your way down through a particular requirement to a design document, to a paragraph in the design document, to a bit of a code module. And also when things went wrong, a little bundle would spin off and give this bundle of design documents and where the error message to the support people and also to the business owners. So I was asked, did I think that Abacus could give a what if capability? And I thought that yes, it could, but it could also do it in a way that's not invasive. It's not going to break when an upgrade comes along, and you can always turn it off and focus on what it does out of the box. So probably a little bit long-winded. So the rest of the presentation is going to talk about Network Rail, who I work for, the project program that I'm on, and then I'll talk about the underneath of how the design of the what if capability, and then I'll go through a demonstration. So, oops, again, I've lost my animation. So this was going to surprise you with that Network Rail is the owner infrastructure manager of most of the rail network in Great Britain. Its role is to run a safe and reliable and efficient railway, serving train operating companies. They're the companies that provide service for passengers, and also for freight operating companies who need to get goods from one place to another. And also Network Rail owns 20 of the busiest and biggest stations. This picture up here is Birmingham New Street, and through every week we have approximately 4 million passengers journeys start, pass through or end a station that Network Rail manages, and likewise there's 350 million pounds worth of goods that travel every week through the rail network. So this is a big picture of the business context for Network Rail, and it's complicated. It would take me a very long time to talk about each one of these, but Target 190 is my project. It's down the bottom side of there, and it's a research and development project, mainly about trying to introduce a future generation command and control signaling. So allowing safe movement of traffic and supporting the timetable. So I might point out a number of organisations. So owners and operators. I think ASLEF is the union for railway drivers. There's about 21,000 members. Over on the right-hand side, Unite and RMT are other unions that cater for the other employees. And up the top right-hand side, we have Europe, Parliament, and so over and all, it's about, well, there's hundreds of thousands of people involved in this. Each of the professionals that you talk to talk in a different language. They each have a different perspective in what they want to, what they use or get out of the railway, and so it's complicated. So that's one of the reasons for producing a sort of a what if capability. Again, I've lost my animations. So in short, we've got problems. The way that we do things is not sustainable, and so we need to renew the bulk of things that we need to renew. We can't get it done to the cost because our budgets are lower. We can't do it as efficiently and as quickly, so we don't have enough resources to do how we currently renew signalling, and the amount of work, the access time that we'd need to have, the access time for engineers and to get on and remove or maintain or upgrade bits of track, it is too much. It would be too invasive in the timetable. So Target 190 is a 54 million program, and it's got 3 goals. And I've lost the animation there. So the first goal on the left-hand side is a life cycle cost. So that's about improving or reducing how we actually design, how we actually can get new bits and new renewals designed and deployed, but also the total cost of ownership, how the lower maintenance costs. And singular modular framework is a goal that is, we currently have a lot of proprietary hardware and software, and the idea is that if we had things that we can plug and play in a safe way, then that would lead to a speedier way of being able to do things, a more incremental way in it. And over on the right-hand side, the evolutionary element is not really about people, it's about it being able to evolve technology, again, in an incremental way, rather than at the moment, things take, it's a big step, take a long time. And this slide is about saying that not only is the context that we're working in complicated, we also have 12 program benefits from providing better customer information, improved sustainability, better capacity, better connectivity and performance. But I'll show you later on in the, perhaps in the demo, is that layer between those goals. We have 26 projects, each of which has a project manager and a tech lead and a number of resources. Each one of those has one or more improvement ideas, and they map to 46 outcomes, which are things that you would improve the way that you design and the way that you run the railway. So not only is the context we're working in, our project is complicated. So again, the idea that we need this what-if capability that can look at things from different project perspectives, different end user perspectives, and different perspectives within the program. So we have established the project. We have a system of we've got this system of systems approach, and we are trying to include this what-if capability so that that engineers can understand effectively what benefit that you get out of this approach and recognize some value to them as to how they work in their project and how they interact with other project teams. So we're also trying to illustrate in the first couple of slides, I probably should have mentioned, is that each train can take off 46 heavy goods vehicles. So that translates to about 1.6 fewer HGV kilometers. So that's a big improvement, or a big impact on reducing the carbon footprint. So one of the opportunities are, we would like to try and remove the constraint that a railway signaller might have understood how we actually control movement in the in the 19th century, that it was about, you can only let a train on one train on one piece of track at any one point in time. To can we make trains more intelligent, so that we can actually have more trains on a piece of track and run safely and to time. So you can see there that if we actually have more capacity, we have more moving, then we have that capability of improving the carbon footprint, but also improving the capacity, the performance, and making the timetable more achievable. So BCT foundations, we have in our repository 3 different architecture types. We have 4. But so the baseline is the current. Interim is the 2B, but I'm only going to mention this example is talking about 1 2B, where we actually have a candidate, I think it's 34, 32 migration states. So you can see again why I think it's useful to have this what-if capability, that you can compare and look at these 32 different options. So we have these, what I call full architectures, and in the area we have an architecture type that matches the baseline and interim, and also the target. And the first step, there's this configuration which the EA team do, in which we use out-of-the-box synchronization to move all of the records from baseline and all of the records from interim into the one architecture. And then we can actually add some configuration. We can add some relationships that replaced by and impacted by to each of the records in the for each of the component types. So it's a little bit more bit more than that, but also then we actually have a script, was kindly developed by Avolution Professional Services, in which we run, and that sets, it takes, because we have some, every time we draw a diagram and it's approved, that is effectively a set of something that's in scope. So the script draws through the repository. If anything's on a diagram, it sets it within scope. As I mentioned, it's a little bit more complicated than that one, but down the line we'll be evolving it to, for example, over this right-hand side. This is icons in our meta model. So the big bit on the right-hand side, the infrastructure, about the things that make that our track side, the things that we actually want to try and eliminate in a safe way, we'll be evolving this tool to apply those records. So get rid of that. The next bit is another bit of configuration which the EA team, so there's a little bit, well, there's quite a lot of prep that we get to before a decision maker can start using the what if capability. So a project has, I think I've mentioned, one or more improvement initiatives. We actually call them outputs. There's also some improvement levels, which we call is an ETCS level. That's the European Train Control System, which effectively provide a framework for all of the technology to operate within. So there are 3 levels, and each have an improvement of, in essence, making the train more intelligent and less reliance on having trackside stuff like signals or other bits of metal along the track. So the configuration that I did was I created all of these potential options and created a standard that had all of these influenced by properties. So there's one property for every, so this is a little bit messy from a data architect's perspective. I don't like it. So there's one property for every one of these options, and the configuration that we do in conjunction with the technical leads and their resources. So every record that we have, so for every system that we have, we say yes or no. Is it going to be influenced by any one of these improvement initiatives? So having done that, we then can give the business tool, the what if capability, over to the decision maker, and they can choose one of the framework things about control levels, and then they could choose all of the improvement initiatives. Press the button. In fact, they don't need to press the button. As soon as they've made that change, we've configured the raft of scripts that Avolution Professional Service have helped us build. Is as soon as they make a selection of these options, a commit is fired in Studio, and it sort of wipes the slate clean from anything that's been there before for this user, and actually goes through it to say whether this is a new system, or it's a change system, or it's a removed system. And in addition, so we press the button, we've got a load of aggregations that it produces. There's some scripts to produce specific roadmaps based on this selection. There's heat maps based on the selection. So when they press the button, which I'll show you now, is that we can actually then start looking at whether this option, this selection set has been useful from their perspective. Is there anything more I want to say about that? No, I think I'll move into the demo. A second. Trying to find where my mouse has gone. There it is. Move that over there. So I'm now in the business case tool. Apologies that I interchangeably use what if and business case tool. So in that foundation slide, I talked about having framework things that the decision maker can choose. So you can see here that ETS level 2, European train control, this is what it says it does, improve safety. So we can choose one of these, which I have. I must say that actually I've, for the purposes of this demonstration, I've actually turned off the scheduling. So I don't want any 5-minute pauses. So the scripts that are triggered take about 3 or 4 minutes to, or maybe less than that, but it's the synchronization. So this is something that and I put this property over the right hand side here, the last updated by, so you can see whether the change that the options that you selected, you can have a short cup of tea, come back and actually see the results of that. Having chosen the framework option, they can then pop into the next one, the next section, and actually choose one of the 45 improvement initiatives. And you can see on this, I'll highlight that we've got enhanced visualization tools and techniques. I've pre-selected this as yes, it's something that I'm interested, I want to explore. We can see on here that these are the values that have been obtained from elsewhere. At the moment, we're coming from a top down. We will evolve the what if, so it's actually aggregated up from a system or a process, so that we actually have these improvement levels. And this, I should have actually said an SEU, which I lost earlier on, is a single equivalence unit. It's a unit by where we compare how expensive, and a unit is approximately 500 meters of track, and somewhere in the my lack of animations, our task is to get it down from £315,000 per SEU per single equivalence unit to under £190,000 per SEU. So that's the ask. And so in here, apologies about missing that off earlier. So we've selected these two particular improvements. We now press the button, and then we can actually now have a look at the range of things that the scripts have provided. And I can first of all pop into the overall view of things. You can see here I've actually added some tips and tricks, but although I've trained 70 people in enterprise, this is they seldom or infrequently come in. So this is a hint that hover over the mouse. And this is a custom visualization. I think it's quite a neat one in that it actually tells you that this particular improvement has now reduced the SEU value from 315 down to 290. So we can evolve this roadmap to actually include all of the things that underpin that decision. If you see a graph in here, it's a legend. So red, amber, green. Red is something that's available as a design concept. Amber would be something that is available as a trial or a prototype, and green is something that is available now and something we can purchase. So this is in addition to saying this is the money that that it's reduced by, but it also gives you an element of understanding what risk is associated with the options that you've chosen. I'll hop on to SEU. So again, this is a finance. So SEU is a financial look at things. So we've put together the three things we've got: the framework in this box over here, the SEU glide path. If I'd have chosen all of them, you would have seen quite a big glide path in here. You'd be able to look at that. But also, I think the good news for us at the moment is that I think the improvement potential at the moment is looking that we could seriously undershoot our target of 190. I think it's down to something like 120 if you chose everything. Something that we need to work on down here is that this is, I've called these stereotype things in this roadmap that you can see down here. We've got a slight little bit of configuration in that it should be showing red, amber, green. The reason for this, we know, is that we need to produce this this roadmap for the R&D, the design element of it, and the operation element, and then you'll be able to see that a little bit more clearly. So that's something that we need to improve with the product. What else have we got down here? So I'll now move on to, I've been guilty of waffling too much. We can have a look actually at the business impact, and this behind the scenes. I don't know if you notice up here that actually every time I move to a diagram, some of the screens have chosen those myriad of yeses and nos to say, they've translated all of those into, is it a selected option? So it's using the live diagram feature in Enterprise and selecting, in this case, down to the things that you've chosen. These are actually the elements of the railway, running the railway, that it's impacted. And I know from my knowledge of the capability model, this looks a little bit something missing for this. And if I remove that filter, so what we will be having a conversation about here is that we would actually be having a conversation with the technical leads to say, well, in fact, first of all, we would say, have we got the configuration data wrong? Because there should be something that's in service delivery or capacity management that should have been green. So we would actually say, well, why is that? And this is the conversation that you would have with the technical leads about this option. Is there something that we're missing? So I would click on the button to say, well, actually, what on the outcome? So an outcome is, you can't see this, but this is where we want to get to. This is the level of improvement, and we can see on here that there's actually no outcomes that are of the options that I've selected. Some of them should at least have a green blob. So that sparks a conversation that we say, well, what have we got wrong here? But I think it's that element of being able to split up. Either there's some mapping that's wrong, or there's some data that was wrong. So we might then, while I'm in here, we might drop down into the scheme processes. These are the things that are actually about design and design deployment. So we've got some element here. If we remove the filter, there's an awful lot more about this design process, but the selected options did have an effect. I probably had a color code those so that they're more easily pickable, uppable. So I'll now go back to here. I'm conscious that I said that I was going to finish in half an hour, but my alarm has gone off. So we can have a look at the different facets of that from the people, organization. So if I have a quick look at competencies, actually we can see here. So competencies are things that people need to be trained in. And if you were trying to understand about what things you need training in, and therefore what processes are underneath these things, you might come down here, have a look at. It's actually this process. So it's railway knowledge, and we know that this team and these people and this organization are involved in that change. So we would then be trying to improve or evolve this to say, is there a training program that we need in here? And I still haven't found out why. So if I now go into the benefits, again, this is a way of summarizing for the things that you've chosen. At the moment, we've just got a number of counts of benefits, but that will evolve into figures. So the limitations of the matrix is that we would have a matrix for every metric, perhaps. So money, time, and access. So if I actually had a look at the benefits mapping, we can look in here to say, well, actually, the things that we've chosen, actually, these are the only two projects that we've selected things about. So we would actually have a look at again. So at the moment, I'm trying to understand why we don't have something in that capability model. And now I've drilled down to here, I actually see that we haven't. So there's been a gap in that we only have, so the things highlighted green are those that are involved in that selected option. And we can see here that we don't have any mapping from, and the only output that we have mapped from is common data format. So we need to go back to the tech leads or the benefits mapping team to say, actually, well, what are the mappings here? Do we need to replicate some of the other ones? So that's the reason why, looking at that capability model, that we had a glaring miss. And so where would I go now? So if I went down into, so the next one finally, we have the technical aspect. Again, I will, in fact, I'll first of all take that filter off. So in here, we've got all of the technical side of things. So this is a tree map that actually uses some SCU data, so cost data that we've aggregated up. So at the whole level, you can see where the cost is going. We need some way of showing you what the difference in cost is. If I went to the graph view side of things, I can actually start and navigate in a voyage of discovery about this aspect of the technology. What are the systems? What processes are they related to? And so that's a discovery process or a discovery capability. But here, something that's useful, if I actually change these, so this is things that replace, actually I've missed off one final one, so I need to go back and show you the business impact. So if I take the time, we can see, you may not have noticed there, I should have perhaps slowed down, but it's actually removed all of the things that are not part of that selected option. So if you want to remove that filter off again, you can see, go back to, return to, I did talk about, so is there anything else? I think that there was some elements there that I was perhaps going to talk about. Our life cost, we've got a series of graphs about how much we think the cost profile will change, and there are some surprising elements in this that make you recognize that when you introduce change, costs might improve for a while until you're able to remove the old one, or there's a little bump that we start off with. And I think that's, I was going to show you some dependency maps, try to understand that dependency roadmap, but I think I've run out of time, so I will now move back onto, if I can grab hold of my slide pack. So
we have about 10 minutes.
I was going to let people out.
We've got a couple of questions that we can get to.
Two, have we? I've bored people then. So, as a result of this is sort of winding up things. We actually now, I think, have got a what if foundation that's established. Be interested in what you think may be useful, or what might be hideous about this what if capability, or indeed if you think that you might look to establish one yourself. We have high level of confidence, or not high level of confidence. We have a happy note that we actually see that we can that we have some candidate answers to problems. There is light at the end of the tunnel. We do have some options that bring down the SCU rate to well below 190, depending on how risk averse you are. We have a range of stuff in our backlog about how to evolve the whole of this framework, maybe, but also maybe to add some more relationships to outcomes, so that when somebody is looking from a particular perspective, they may only want to focus on that particular outcome, or a range of things that is only, remember back to that big picture, there might be some external stakeholders who have a much narrower view, and treading either side of that would be perhaps more confusing than not. This is my own personal thing that I'd like to have. At the moment, the roadmaps that I could have showed you were sort of siloed roadmaps, in that it's the project's view of when things can be delivered by, but it hasn't taken into consideration the availability dates of the things that they're dependent on. So I think that would be useful in a way of being able to prioritize things, or to see if there are gaps in each other's work. So my gut feel at the moment is, that the roadmaps at the moment are showing a truncated way, and not a sort of kind of coordinated way, in that you might get the feeling that the technology roadmap, you can deliver things in the year 2030, but then if you have a look at the people roadmap, you need to have trained people, so that might push it another year or so forward, to the right. And again, with each of the different perspectives, if you're looking at those, the people, organizations, technology, and information, if you're looking at a coordinated roadmap of those, that I feel would allow you to come up with a migration state that has, as you've explored each of the unintended consequences or the gaps, or you have a start. And we also need to perhaps improve the buy-in. And that's a little bit of ours in actually getting the data better and providing a particular viewpoints that decision makers can come in. And finally, I started playing golf again. I think within 4 weeks of playing, I had 2 holes in one in the same round within the space of 5 holes. So that was the highlight. I won't tell you about the rest of my game, but that's me done.
That's excellent. Cool. Thank you, Brian. That's great. That's a great presentation. Thank you very much for that. And I mean, it really does show this sort of very high level of work that you and the team at Network Rail are doing. And I know there's more to come, but certainly what's been achieved in a relatively short space of time is incredible. So as I mentioned, we've got some questions, several questions actually. I say whether we can get to them all, I'm not sure, but we'll do our best on the first few. So how long did it take to get those algorithms running, in the sense of being able to get the right data for the algorithms? That came up quite early actually, so that was referring perhaps to something specific.
So we have evolved some that we've got along that weren't part of that business toolkit. Quickly, actually, it's about. So I put down a design document, and when I get professional services involved, would I say that depending on their workload, I think it has been within the week that a particular script has been, but it perhaps could have been. I've learnt now in that I have a design document that is focused, and it helps the guys developing the scripts that I say, this is the meta model about this. It's this particular thing, and it's more about that design document is maybe a week or so, or 2 weeks, but from the point of having that certainty, and again. Another thing, it's trying to remove things. So the time to develop the script, I think, would be a lot quicker if, and I now have got test data areas, and it's trying to run the script, and because obviously the guys are working on other projects and parachuting in to resolve that problem. So it's up to me to try and give them data that makes sense, and a really quick turnaround time. In fact, I've developed some of those ones. The ones that does that headline, pulls their headline metrics. That was a visual algorithm, so that took an hour. There's some of the other scripts that are. I mean, I've improved over time. So the professional services provided a script that auto generates. I showed you some of those benefit maps. Mm-hmm. So I now take those, and it takes me an hour or an hour and a half to generate those things, and then we've got some ideas around what might evolve those. So from the most complicated ones, you know, I've been surprised about the turnaround and the level of, you know, the quality, and also the pointers saying, well, actually, have you? Sometimes I say what we need, and the guys producing the scripts actually say, well, actually, if you did X, Y, Z, that would be, you know, that would be better. So a case in point there was, I was trying to apply the filters for those, you know, those hundreds of thousands, well, 52 properties, which said it's yes for this, yes for that, but they said, well, actually, if you just aggregate those and convert those into a property, then this would be much better. It's straight, you know, there's no complexity in moving things around, and so yeah, a very short time from, you know, when they start. There's a little bit of a session, you know, an hour that I would have, or even less than that, to say, this is the scene, this is where I want to get to, and here's I have some mock-up screens that this is what I want it to look like, but also, yeah, the limit on being able to develop those is how good I've been at describing what the problem is, and actually saying how we've configured our system.
Yes, indeed. So, and so you've answered that first question in relation to the algorithms. I think you've actually answered what was going to be the second question from Michael, who had asked about the level of scripting that's got into this project. And throughout, you've obviously been talking about that, and you've sort of referred a little bit more in your answer then as well. In this case, of course, as you mentioned, our own team have helped with some of the scripting. Just to quickly add at this point, because I'm normally talking about the sessions that we have coming up, what's coming next. Actually, one that I think most people on this call will have probably missed is one of the presentations we had in the early hours from our Australian team. So there's a recording on developing your own scripts for people to perhaps listen to later. Still, I think it's a pity actually we didn't have your two sessions in the other order in some respects. That would have come on quite nice now after this.
Sorry about that. But yeah, to answer that question, there are about 12 scripts. 4 of them are visual algorithms that I put together, and there are 2 meaty ones that actually do the. I probably should have shown you. Actually, it changes all of our relationships into, is this a new thing, a changed thing, or a removed thing? And that also does the calculation of the percentage change. So that's a meaty one.
Yeah.
And there's another one which well, yeah, it sets it, yeah. So there's 2 meaty ones, but the rest of them are much less meaty.
Well, I mean, that was going to lead, or does lead into one of the other questions here, actually. I mean, and if you've run the script, or if you have the numbers to mind, you could answer this quickly. If not, it may be tricky. Somebody's asked, how many kilometers of railway is Network Rail responsible for? And therefore, how much could potentially be saved using this what-if capability?
Well, over time, well, there's two answers to that one. I don't actually have a number of number of kilometers. So, for example, I think Kent is about the railway network for Kent alone is about the size of Switzerland. So, you know, they are big. So, you know, it covers up there Scotland, Ireland, England, and Wales. So, it's the whole of the network. So, gosh, I'll find the answer, but we aren't responsible for the freight operators have elements of theirs, so they have a bit of railway that gets things from quarries or from other own things that get them, and then they move them onto the rail network. But it is the infrastructure manager for the whole of Great Britain. So, gosh, I'm thinking obviously it's a lot less than it was in the 60s. So I'll get it. I hate to put should I? I mean, it's hundreds of thousands of miles.
And of course, the second part of that is, you know, what sort of savings could be made. I mean, and that's where, at least potentially, I think you've illustrated the way in which that could very easily be calculated now.
huge. I mean, in the billions. But there's two sides of that. Is that the focus for it's an R&D project, which is primarily focused about how do we improve the speed and the repeatability and the of the design phase of that until you actually get it to deployed. But there's some bigger questions that are going to be coming, and whether it's it is in our strategy, but it's actually the total cost of ownership. So when the idea that we as IT people would move to, and there's a lot of risk that railway engineers would place on that to say, you're putting all this into the modern computing. So if we move to cloud-based, whether it's a private cloud or probably not public cloud, we remove the need to have, and the change in the way signaling goes, we remove. Oh, that's right. I lost one of the diagrams. Showed you. It shows you, if you squint, you can see that we start off with lots of metal at the track side. The next stage is less, and then in the future we have, and this is aspirational, that we have things that are provided out of a all out of a cloud data service. But we also, you don't need then to actually provide build highly available, very powerful trackside things. So, but you can plug into the into the evolved, or you've got a network side of things, the Ethernet or that side of things. So it could be, it could be billions of pounds. It's highly likely to be, our IT side of things would say it's really quite huge saving.
Absolutely. Well, actually, we really do have to leave it there, but what a note to end on, that with the saving of billions of pounds, all down to EA. So that's fantastic. There was one other question, well, there's a couple of others, but one in particular I would love to have asked, because it would have just fed in so nicely to the next session that we've got. So there's no time, but I'll tell you what it is, Brian. And if you're able to join us for the next session, by all means, tap in and answer in the comments. As someone asked, with your 10 years of experience, what tips would you give to people just starting off using Abacus or EA in general? As I say, that would have fed in so nicely to the next session, which I'll just tell everyone about in a moment. But before I do that, Brian, thank you so much for that presentation. It was great.